The NBA trade deadline is less than 2 days away, and with the Boston Celtics having some flexibility to possibly be going after some guys, with a player on the Toronto Raptors being more and more rumored to likely be out the door, could the Boston Celtics be inquiring about a player in Chris Boucher? We'll be looking at this forward that the Celtics have had interest in the past, looking at his contract, and looking how this fit could work out for the Boston Celtics if they were to get a deal done. All of that and more on this episode of Celtics Digest. I'm Bruce Veliz. But before we dive into this Chris Boucher news, 79% of our viewers are not subscribed, and we'd greatly appreciate it if you hit that big old red subscribe button and join the Celtics Digest family. We want to get to our goal of 4,000 subscribers, so if you want to make sure you stay up to date on daily Boston Celtics news and coverage, hit that subscribe button, as you definitely will not regret it. But let's dive into the news at hand today. Make sure to grab a snack, as today's episode is going to be a jam-packed one as we dive into some more trade rumors with the Boston Celtics, looking at this possible move making for the Celtics, and that is inquiring about Chris Boucher. Now, Chris Boucher has been a sought-after forward for the Boston Celtics for a couple years now in reports, and he was a solid forward for the Toronto Raptors in their championship run in 2019, and after that in the bubble gave the Celtics a little bit of a problems, being, a small ballish 5, more of a 4, kind of weird placement with Pascal Siakam being there. Would have excelled a little bit better at a 4 in my opinion, but had to play a little bit of a small ball 5. Coming off the bench, had a bit of a more of exceeding role. But Chris Boucher is, a solid forward, in getting rebounds and being, just an all-around guy for the Toronto Raptors. In recent days, though, we've seen that the Toronto Raptors are trying to find a landing spot for Chris Boucher, and this is according to Smith Raps, which is a reporter for the Toronto Raptors. Chris Boucher amidst the whole new ways in Toronto, I should say, of, after falling out of trades of Pascal Siakam and OG Anunoby, bringing in guys like Emmanuel Quickley and RJ Barrett, the Raptors are definitely seeking a youth movement. And with Chris Boucher being one of their kind of, veteran pieces alongside, Thaddeus Young, Dennis Schroeder, Gary Trent, even Bruce Brown, who they just recently acquired. Those are some of the guys that the Raptors are looking to move off of as they try to get, younger and younger into this Eastern Conference and try to get to the bottom of the Eastern Conference ahead of the trade deadline. So a guy like Chris Boucher, who could be a solid veteran wing and be, a nice playoff piece that could help out some teams, is definitely a piece that some teams will definitely want and a piece that the Celtics could definitely look after as well. If we want to look, we can look at this tweet from January 7th, which shows that the Celtics were interested in Chris Boucher for a while, and that was reported from Jake Fisher. Now, that was about a month ago, where, some things can change between the Boston Celtics organization, deciding in who they want to get after and who they sought after. But a guy like Chris Boucher, I think, could be, a nice guy to bring in as, a 8th, 9th man on a rotation. The only problem here dealing with Chris Boucher is his contract and his stats. If we want to look at Chris Boucher's stats, you guys can see he's putting up 6.2 points, 4.1 total rebounds, and 0.4 assists on 48% shooting, 33% from the 3, and 75% from the free throw. Now, like I mentioned, Chris Boucher is not having that all-star-esque season and not being in a lot of minutes just because the Raptors want to prioritize some of their younger players. They've been playing guys like Jakob Poeltl, Jonte Porter, for example, was a, smaller center, I guess you want to call it, that they were running at the center position. They have guys like Bruce Brown, they have guys like RJ Barrett, Scotty Barnes, their main attraction, their main piece. So a guy like Chris Boucher has been getting some DNPs recently for the Toronto Raptors, and has kind of just been falling out of this rotation. And like I mentioned earlier, he is worth some value, and the one thing that is a problem, though, is his contract. Making around $11 million, it's going to be tough and difficult for a team to kind of trade after for Chris Boucher, even if it is not the Boston Celtics. I mean, making $11 million this year, it is receding to $10 million the next year, and then that season after that, he is a free agent. But for trading for a guy in Chris Boucher, you're going to have to have his contract next season, and you're going to have to, give up a decent amount of money in around $10 million, $11 million to get a deal done. Now, with the Boston Celtics, that seems to be the difficult point for Chris Boucher, as, Chris Boucher coming to the Boston Celtics on a contractual agreement doesn't seem like it's going to be the best offer. Like I mentioned, and we've mentioned in the past, the top 4 guys who make the most money on the Boston Celtics are untouchable. Holiday and Porzingis recently just acquired in the offseason, and obviously the 2 J's will not be moved. Derrick White is a guy who is undervalued at $17.5 million. The Celtics value him so greatly much and wanted to work on extension with him last offseason. I'm sure that this offseason they'll get one done. And Al Horford, being the aging veteran he is a guy the Celtics could keep. Now, if you want to look, they could, combine a bunch of guys, Luke Kornet, Oshae Brissett, Svi Mykhailiuk, all that. But I don't think that is all going to be able to total up, and I don't think the Raptors are going to want to do a 5-for-1 or a 6-for-1 deal with Chris Boucher. The only possible move that I think could happen with this getting done is a move involving Payton Pritchard. But Payton Pritchard is a little bit difficult to move just because of the poison pill activation in his contract. If you guys do not know, with Payton Pritchard's deal, he signed an extension in the offseason, to guarantee him around $7 million, but he's still on a $4 million deal. With the poison pill activation, when he is traded, he goes out for $7 million, but I do believe the Celtics can only take back around $4 million, the amount they give up. So they lose about $3 million in the deal. That's why poison pill contracts usually don't get moved, as it is a hassle for both teams to find an agreement on what's worth the value, but also finding out that they both want to do the deal contractually as well. So a little bit difficult with Payton Pritchard on a move there. The Raptors obviously would be likely to take a guy like Payton Pritchard, as he is a young guard, maybe package him with a Fee or Stevens or Banton to get a deal done. But like I mentioned earlier, it's going to be difficult to be moving 4-for-1 guys for a guy like Chris Boucher. Like I mentioned, the Boston Celtics' easiest way to get a deal done is using this traded player exception of Grant Williams that they have in the offseason. That's probably the most likely way that a deal will get done. As I mentioned, while Horford's not moving, Payton Pritchard's a little bit difficult to deal, and some of those bottom-end rotation guys are a lot harder to get up off of, especially to another team if you're going to be moving 4 or 5 of them for one said player. It's not like it's the offseason where a couple years ago where the Celtics traded Malcolm Brogdon, they could give up all those bench pieces because the Pacers could, waive said guys and then re-sign some other guys in the offseason. These teams don't have that flexibility. They'll lose some money, and they don't want to lose those valuable contracts for just some end-old guys to get rid of one said player when they can move said player to another team or possibly work at another deal. Now, if Chris Boucher were to possibly see a buyout option, that is something where I could see the Boston Celtics getting interested and intrigued in getting a deal done, just because Chris Boucher is a nice forward. He is under that non-tax mid-level exception that we have mentioned. He is making around $11 million, where the non-tax mid-level is $12.4 million, since he is under that limit. If he were to get bought out by the Toronto Raptors, if they were unable to get a deal done and just wanted to play some younger players, Chris Boucher could get bought out. He could come to this Boston Celtics team, and that is a candidate the Celtics could pursue on the buyout market. We'll have to obviously wait and see after the trade deadline to see who those candidates are and who some of those possibilities are. We obviously know that Gordon Hayward, if he's bought out, or even Kyle Lowry, if they're bought out, Celtics cannot pursue and go after those guys as they make over $12 million. But since the Boston Celtics, Chris Boucher makes under that money, the Celtics could go after and bring him in. Same thing with Kelly Olynyk, but let me know your guys' thoughts and opinions on a possible Chris Boucher deal. I don't think it's likely to get done. I don't think the Celtics will go after and trade for Chris Boucher, but if he does get bought up by the Raptors, I do think it's a plausible option for the Boston Celtics to pursue him, as I think he could be a solid piece for the Celtics as an 8th or 9th man at that wing position. But let me know in the comment section what you guys think of this Chris Boucher deal, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Thank you guys so much. Peace out.